Every dad wants to raise a confident kid, a child who faces challenges, overcomes doubt, and steps into the future with something solid on the inside to stand on. We all want that. The question is how. The way you engage, the words you speak, the time you invest, the belief you communicate, all of it is shaping something deep inside your child, whether you're intentional about it or not. The only question is what you're shaping. And here's the thing, your kids are already asking you, not out loud probably, but underneath the everyday noise of childhood and adolescence. Every kid, toddlers, grade schoolers, teenagers, and even adult children are carrying three questions on a continuous loop as they grow into the person God made them to be. Am I capable? Am I valued? Does anyone believe in me? Dad, you are that anyone. These aren't just little kid questions. They don't age out. They just go underground. And the longer they go unanswered, the more damage they do. So today, let's talk about how you answer them, not with a speech, but with how you show up, what you notice, what you say, and what you believe about who your kids are becoming. The first question, am I capable? Kids in this phase are starting to spread their wings and test themselves against the world. They're asking, can I actually do stuff? Am I good at things that matter? Psychologist Eric Erickson called this stage industry versus inferiority. Basically, can I work hard at something and get good at it? Or am I just going to feel like I'm bad at everything? When kids experience real success, especially in areas where they have natural interest or ability, something clicks. Hey, I can actually do this, they say. When that happens repeatedly across different challenges, that's where confidence and self-esteem start to grow. But when their attempts get ignored, shot down, or constantly end in failure, they start thinking, I'm not good at anything. This is exactly why your role as a dad matters so much. I've watched this play out with all three of my kids in different ways. Brandon seemed naturally good at managing money from a young age. He would ask for money for his birthdays and then save it. He'd do chores and save his allowance. At about 10 years old, he hung a sign on his bedroom door, massage and free advice, $1. So his mom and I would go into a self-made spa and counseling center, pay $1, and receive a neck massage while asking him important life questions. It was hilarious and revealing. Even then, he was thinking like an entrepreneur. Now, at 29, he owns 2 homes and is managing his finances remarkably well. Ryan was always good with numbers. He crushed his SAT math scores and went on to major in finance and work as an accounting manager. He also picked up the bass guitar in high school, currently plays in the worship team at his church. Turns out rhythm and numbers both came naturally to him. Kaylee was always caring, thoughtful, and empathetic toward others. When she was young, she told us she wanted to be 2 things, a missionary and a mom. So she grew up serving in our children's ministry. And today she teaches young teen girls at church and works as a doctor of physical therapy. All roles that let her care for people the way she's always been wired to. We saw unique capabilities emerging in all 3 of our kids from a young age. We did our best to notice them, encourage them, resource opportunities for them, and celebrate the way God had made them. Not because we had it all figured out, but because we were paying attention. But here's where you need to be careful, Dad. This isn't about pushing your son or daughter to live up to your dreams for them. It's about helping them discover what God is already building in them. The danger comes when dads trade curiosity for control, when we stop discovering who our child is and start dictating who they should be. Sometimes, without realizing it, we begin living through them, projecting old dreams or unmet potential onto our kids who were never meant to carry them. That's not fathering. That's pressure. Proverbs 22:6 reminds us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The original Hebrew suggests something important. It's not your way. It's his way, your child's way, his path, his design. Your job is to pay attention, be curious, and raise that child up in the way he should go. Provide resources, experiences, and opportunities. Create space where strengths can emerge. When you study who your child is becoming, give them space to explore it, and affirm what you see, the person God designed begins to take shape right in front of you. And as a dad, there's nothing more joyful than that. Okay, the first question, am I capable? The second question is this, am I valued? This gets answered most powerfully by the words you use. And I don't just mean the big speeches or the milestone moments. I mean the daily, ordinary, unremarkable flow of words that move through your home every single day. Because here's what fathers need to hear. Your words don't just describe your child, they form your child. There's a scene at Jesus' baptism that I keep coming back to as a father. Before he even performed a miracle, before he ever preached a sermon, before he called a single disciple, his father spoke from heaven, "This is my son whom I love. With him I'm well pleased." That sentence does three things. It names identity. This is my son. It declares affection, whom I love. And it communicates approval. With him I'm well pleased. And here's what makes it extraordinary. This wasn't praise for performance. It was delight without condition. The father was essentially saying, you don't have to earn this. You already have it. That's what every child needs from their father. You belong to me. I love you. I'm proud of who you are, not who you might become, not what you just achieved. You. Most of us dads want to give that message. But if we're honest, life gets crazy. Work demands more. We get tired. We get distracted. We get critical. We focus on what needs fixing instead of what needs affirming. And slowly our words shift from building to breaking. Herb Brooks was the legendary coach of the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team, the Miracle on Ice. He drove that group of college kids mercilessly and pulled off what sports historians still call the greatest upset in sports history. But Herb carried a wound his whole life. Back in 1960, he trained relentlessly, and he earned a spot on the U.S. Olympic team, only to be cut in the final round days before the games began. He had to watch from home as that team won the gold medal. As Herb and his father watched the celebration on TV, his father looked at him and said, "I guess they cut the right player." Wow. Herb Brooks never forgot those words. It was a wound that lasted throughout his lifetime. That's what words can do. I've sat across from grown men who still hear their father's voice in moments of failure. One man told me, every time I mess up at work, I still hear my dad saying, "What's wrong with you?" His dad's been gone for 15 years, but that voice still runs in his mind. Shame doesn't say you made a mistake. It says you are a mistake. And that's a hard lie to silence later in life. The beautiful thing, though, is that healing can happen through the same instrument that caused the hurt. The same mouth that wounded can become the mouth that heals. When you notice your child's endurance and character, say it out loud. "I love watching you figure out things. You've got such a creative mind," or "You didn't give up when that got hard." That shows real strength. Those specific affirmations teach your child that you're paying attention, that their character matters more than their performance. The Apostle James says the tongue is like a fire, a small spark that can set an entire forest ablaze. That's true in every home. One word spoken in anger or cruelty can implant a wound that may never heal. But a fire also brings warmth. Your voice can do that. I've gone back to my kids before and said, "Hey, I blew it. What I said earlier was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I know it hurt you. I'm sorry." That might sound simple, but I can't tell you how powerful it is when a father humbles himself. Kids remember those moments. They remember that dad was strong enough to apologize. Now, some dads think that affirming words will make their kids soft. It actually makes them strong, because I'm not talking about flattery. I'm talking about authentic affirmation from their father. Because when a child feels secure in your love, they take bigger risks. They can fail safely. They can grow without fear. Thomas Carlyle once said, "Call a man brave and you help him become so." Affirm character and they'll grow into it. That's not flattery. It's formation. However, while affirming character with your words is crucial, children also build confidence through genuine achievement. Dr. Carol Dweck calls it the growth mindset, praising effort over talent. "You worked hard on that problem" is far more empowering than "you're so smart." When you affirm effort, you teach your child that persistence matters more than perfection, that failure is feedback, not identity. I think about the summer Ryan learned his left-handed layup. His coach told him that mastering a left-handed drive would set him apart. Ryan had always been a hard worker, but that summer he took it to another level. It was his 8th grade year, and he set a goal, spent the entire summer in our driveway perfecting it. By the end of the summer, he could drive left as naturally as right. Celebrating this new skill was important, but highlighting the character it took to develop that skill mattered even more. The discipline, persistence, and work ethic he showed that summer carried into everything else he did. Now, years later, that same character shows up in his work, his marriage, and in his parenting. When you affirm process and character, you're not just shaping childhood, you're shaping adulthood. Think about what this looks like in the hard moments. Your son strikes out with bases loaded and walks back to the dugout, shoulders slumped. What he needs in that moment isn't a lecture about keeping his eye on the ball. It's, I love watching you play. I'm proud of the way you keep showing up. Let's say your daughter bombs a math test she studied hard for. Instead of, you need to try harder and focus more, try this. I saw how much time you put in. Let's look at what didn't click because you've got what it takes to figure it out. Words like those don't lower the standard. They raise resilience. Here's the truth. Your kids will remember how you responded when they failed far more than how you celebrated their successes. So the first question is, am I capable? The second question is, am I valued? And the third question is, does anyone believe in me? That third question might be the deepest one, because there's a difference between loving your child and believing in them. Love says you're valuable. Belief says you're capable, and your kids need both. Legendary basketball coach Jim Valvano once said, "My father gave me the greatest gift anyone could give another person. He believed in me." Wow. That's how powerful it is when a father looks at his child and says, "I see something great in you. I believe in you." The tragedy is that some fathers, having never reached their own potential, father from their wounds rather than from their children's hopes. They project their own disappointments onto the next generation without realizing they're doing it. There's a moment in the movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, that captures this perfectly. Will Smith's character watches his young son shooting hoops and starts telling him he'll probably never be good at basketball because he wasn't good at it himself. Then he catches himself. He stops, looks at his son, and says with conviction, "Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something, not even me. You got a dream, you got to protect it." That's the moment of choice every father faces. Will you limit your child by your own disappointments, or will you believe in possibilities you may have never experienced yourself? I faced that moment with my son, Brandon, where he felt called to leave his well-paying job at Exxon and pursue vocational ministry. As someone who had spent more than 25 years working in the church, I was familiar with the potential challenges, the conflicts, the pressures, the financial strain, and the time demands. Honestly, I quietly hoped to shield my kids from ministry as a vocation because of those challenges. So when Brandon told me he was seriously considering this change, my heart sank. But after some prayer and reflection, after getting my head on straight, I began to challenge my assumptions. I said to myself, well, his path may not even be the same as mine. Who was I to question God's call on his life? So I chose, in the end, to believe in his strengths, his gifts, and his potential for fulfilling ministry. Today, he's thriving in the work that God has called him to do. You know, your child deserves a dad who sees not just who they are today, but who they could become tomorrow, the future that God has for them, not the one you desire. Along the way, your kids will have moments when they doubt their strengths and capabilities. That's where a father's vision becomes essential. They need a strong, loving dad who sees their potential and can challenge them to believe in themselves. Before I close, I want to say something important because everything we've talked about today is real and it matters, but none of it is enough on its own. And I think the best dads eventually come to terms with this truth. You cannot be the ultimate source of your child's confidence. You're not built for that. I'm not built for that. None of us are. Even if you're a great dad, present, engaged, saying all the right things, you're still not there all the time. You can't speak enough words into your child to permanently fill that space that doubt and insecurity will try to occupy. There are going to be moments, late at night, in a hallway at school, in the middle of a failure you don't even know about, when your voice isn't in the room. And if your child's confidence rests entirely on what you've built, It's standing on a foundation that has limits. This is why one of the most important things you can do as a father is to intentionally point your kids toward a foundation that doesn't have those limits. And that foundation is their identity in Christ. There's a moment in the Old Testament where Joshua is standing on the edge of the promised land. Moses is dead. The entire weight of leading a nation into a completely unknown territory has just landed on his shoulders. And God speaks to Joshua. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That's found in Joshua 1:9. What I love about that verse is that God isn't telling Joshua to feel brave. He's not saying, conjure up some courage and push through. The confidence God is offering Joshua isn't rooted in Joshua's abilities or his track record. It's rooted entirely in one thing. When God says, I will be with you. The source of the courage is the presence of God. That's it, wherever you go. That's what authentic faith does for a child. Not just church attendance, not a Christian checkbox, but a real, personal, growing relationship with God. When your child knows who they are in Christ, that they're known, chosen, loved, and never alone, it changes how they face insecurity. It changes how they respond to failure, because in those moments, they have access to a voice that doesn't waver, a presence that doesn't leave, and an identity that cannot be taken away. My job as a dad isn't to be the final source of my kids' confidence. My job is to be a bridge. I use my words, my presence, my belief in them to point them towards something bigger than me. I want them to hear me say, I love you and I believe in you, and then know that God says the same thing, infinitely better, and is there when I'm not. There will come a day when your child is grown, maybe holding their own son or daughter, and in a moment of struggle or joy, they'll hear your voice again. The things you said, the tone you used, the words you chose, and they'll either think, I can do this, or I'll never measure up. That's the long reach of fatherhood. Your words are shaping generations you'll never meet. None of us get this right all the time. You won't. I didn't. But one of the greatest gifts you can give your child is a redeemed voice, one that keeps learning how to speak life into them even after you've failed before. Because grace doesn't just redeem lives, it redeems voices. If you've been harsh, apologize. If you've been distant, re-engage. If you've been silent, speak. It's not too late for any of that, regardless of how old your kids are right now. One of my favorite things to tell dads is this. When you criticize your child, they don't stop loving you, they stop loving themselves. So speak life. Build up, don't tear down. Correct with grace. Encourage with truth. And if you need a starting place, here's one. Tonight before bed, tell your child 3 things. Who they are, what you love about them, and what you're proud of. Something like, I'm so glad you're my son. I love how kind you are. I'm proud of the way you treat people. That's simple. It may feel small, but I promise it's enormous. Because long after your voice stops echoing in your house, it will echo in their hearts. Let it be a voice that says, you belong to me. I love you. I believe in you. That voice is yours to give, and there's no better time to start giving it than right now.